just kind of complaining to him about some like somebody who'd like broken my heart essentially. And I just grabbed a guitar, and I just was like kind of like playing like a whiny pop punk song to him, just like making it up, but like with even more ridiculous lyrics and just being like joking around. Then all of a sudden we were like, I don't know, this is kind of a vibe. Like, let's just make this a song.
Hey, Sam, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. My name's Adam, and this podcast is about you and your journey in music and how you got to where you are now.
Cool.
Awesome. So first off, I always ask, where were you born and raised?
I was born and raised in Indiana, in a little farm town called Zionsville, Indiana.
What was it like growing up there? I mean, you're in LA now, right?
I'm in LA now.
Quite a change.
It was, I mean, I loved like growing up there. Like, I like the small town vibe a little bit, but I also like, because it was like kind of like a cornfield farm town, right? And then I would always like, I was like super into punk and music super early on. So all my friends and everything were always just like people in the city. So then I would just like, I was just always at shows and things like that. So I didn't really like hang out with that many people from like my school or anything like that. But it was a lot of like, smoking pot and like almost getting kidnapped in cornfields.
Oh,
like,
wow. I get the smoking pot, but almost getting kidnapped. That's kind of,
yeah, I know.
Wild.
It was.
Oh,
it was just normal for us. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of kidnappers out there, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
So what about music? How did you get into music? Do you come from an artistic musical household at all?
Yeah, my mom and my dad, I mean, almost like everyone in my family is a musician. Like my mom is like a singer and songwriter, keyboard player. Like she was in Keyboard Magazine and
wow.
She was like, a really well-regarded flautist. And then my dad was this like incredible slide guitar player that played in bands all over. And my mom and dad actually were in a band together, and they like opened for BB King and stuff like that. So I definitely, yeah. And then my grandma, it's like the whole line of people.
Were they doing that when you were a kid? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
They were. Yeah. Like when I was a kid, I mean, and up until my dad ended up like, he got kind of pushed into getting like a real job or whatever.
Sure.
And so he was in finance. And then, I don't know, maybe when he was like 40, he just was like, fuck it, and quit. And then just played like $100 a night guitar gigs for the rest of his life. Yeah.
That's cool. So they must be really proud of what you're doing.
Yeah, I think so.
That's really cool.
So I have a very crazy story about my grandma.
Do you have time?
Yeah. Yeah, my grandma was, and I didn't know this until I was 19, because she was being awarded at like the college that I was going to. And I was like, that's weird. Why are they doing like a whole award ceremony to honor my grandma?
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Were you going there at the time?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Weird. Okay, go ahead.
I knew she's a pianist, and I knew she worked with the music school and ways and stuff like that. So my family's from Argentina. So she was like a big part of like their Latin American music program and stuff. But go there and I find out this insane story, and where my grandma was actually awarded Venezuela's Woman of the Year award for starting she was a music teacher, and she started like a nonprofit, I guess, music class, whatever, and where she put together an entire orchestra of deaf children, and all the instruments were different. They were like based on vibrations and things were a little different. So it's all these deaf children she put together and formed this orchestra. And then she united with the School for the Blind's choir. And then they put them both together and they toured South America doing Sound of Music.
Oh
For
my
like all these
gosh.
dignitaries and stuff like that. It's like all over the news.
That is so cool. Oh my, is there
Yeah.
footage of this online?
I mean, this is, there's not like, I don't think there's video, but the only thing, and my grandma's passed now, but I've seen she had like the news, like the newspaper,
Oh, like write about
prints
it.
out and stuff like that.
That
But I
is
don't know
so
if
amazing.
yeah, isn't that wild?
That is so cool.
And
Wow.
I asked my grandma, we all call her Nanny, and I was like, Nanny, like, why didn't you tell me that? And she was like, you never asked. And I'm like, oh
like,
my
how
God.
the hell would I know to ask that?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so cool. So you're at the school and grandma's getting this award and you're just like, okay, my grandma's getting this award. Do you show up and then you find all this information out at the ceremony?
Correct.
Oh,
I was like, who's my grandma? It was like finding out she's like been a double agent,
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so cool though.
Very funny. Yeah.
Wow.
So that's all to say that yes, music runs in my family.
Yes. So yeah, your parents are musicians, dad's still playing or was
Yeah.
and wow, and grandma's orchestrating all this crazy stuff as well. That's
And she played, awesome. She lived to be 100. She like literally even up until when she passed, she was like playing. She would play in like in her little nursing home for like people. She would be like, just play for them to make them happy. And she would say like, what's your favorite song? What song do you want to hear? And she didn't even know the songs because she didn't grow up in America. So everyone else's songs and references are different.
Sure.
But they would just sort of sing it and she could just pick up what it
was by ear.
And then she would just like play everyone's favorite song so that they could like sing along to their favorite song that they hadn't heard in like 50 years,
That's so cool.
Oh
my gosh, that is wild. Well, what did you like start playing first? Like what instrument did you
I started playing guitar. Guitar is my first. I started playing guitar at 12. And I never really I had little lessons here and there, but my dad was teaching me, but he wasn't a very patient teacher. And also I didn't really want to learn any. I just wanted to play like punk songs,
Sure.
So my experience was literally just like me asking my mom, I remember asking, just ask my mom, listening to Last Caress, Misfits is with all these insane words. And I'm like, Mom, can you tell me the chord? Can you tell me what the chord progression is? And she would just be like, yeah, it's like F sharp minor, C, she could do that.
She had perfect pitch or whatever.
Yeah, she has perfect pitch, everything.
Oh,
so
wow.
She would tell me that and then just tell me the chord progressions. And then my dad would teach me Metallica solos and stuff.
That's cool. I mean, to have your mom be able to do that, this, you didn't have to go on Ultimate Guitar Hero or any of those websites. I mean,
I know
YouTube was not around when I was younger, but to be able to just be hey mom, play a few bars of the song. Okay, the
100%. And it was same for me.
D-C-A or whatever.
Yeah, because when I was growing up, it was that. I mean, I was so young. I was 12. It wasn't really, they didn't really have that kind of happening yet either. It wasn't popularized on the web, Not where you can find anything. Sure.
That's so cool though.
Yeah.
So you started playing guitar. Were you in a band, a punk band or anything when you were in high school or prior to that?
Growing up, I always try to get my friends to be in bands with me, but nobody played any instruments.
Okay.
So it never went anywhere. And then I didn't really play in bands, even though I wanted to, because I was kind of shy about it until I moved to LA when I was right after college. So I was 21 or something, and I moved to LA and I was applying to graduate schools. I wanted to get a PhD in sociology and just get a job and stuff.
Oh, wow. So what was that? What was your what did you want to do? If you had a forever job prior to music?
I wanted to do public policy, government think tank stuff. I was just wanted to do stuff to affect social change and,
That's
that kind
cool.
of stuff, like advocacy.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that was my plan. But then when I was out here, I was like applying to all these schools, and I took a year off, while I was applying, and I was just like hanging with my friends who were musicians, and they were like, "Hey, we want to start this band, but you play bass in it." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, but like I'm gonna have to go to school, so like just know that you're gonna have to get somebody else when I." And they're like, "Okay." And then that band ended up kind of taking off, and then by the time I got like my college acceptances, I was just like, I deferred a year, and then I just like never even thought about it again.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, just to back up real quick, because I'm curious. Before you got to LA, did you go to college for music? Or no, not at all. Sorry. Sociology. I mean, were you writing songs prior to that too? Or like when you got the guitar, or when did you start?
I mean, when I was like young, my whole life, like growing up, I would always like write songs on my guitar. Like I was always more of a writer than like somebody who like listens and learns how to play everyone else's songs. Like I would get really bored of that, and then I would just start messing around and write songs.
Oh, okay. So instead of learning covers or whatever, you would just write your own songs.
Like I knew a few, but I mostly I would write. Yeah. But I never like did anything with it,
Sure. So when you joined this band as a bass player, and that starts to take off, what was that like? Like, I mean, to be in a band, like always kind of wanting to be in a band, but then moving to LA and having this whole total different idea of what you were going to do with your life, and then this thing starts to happen.
It was so fun. I mean, it was like a whole scene, like it was great. Like I loved everything about it. We were like super close knit as a band, and
is the band still around or no?
No.
Okay.
But yeah, it definitely like shaped everything in my life, because like I didn't even sing in the band. I was just like I just played bass. Like I sang backing stuff, but like so many things happened because of that band. Like I wouldn't be doing really music at all. It was just like my friend would like convince me to do it, and I was like, okay. And then also I learned so much about like songwriting being in that band, because we wrote so many records together, and like those were all my first times doing those things. And and just like I learned, we started like recording all of our own albums and self-producing. So that's like how I learned like Pro Tools and all like recording programs to be able to do that on myself. And they really kind of pushed me into singing. Like I didn't sing. I was like, oh, my voice is like weird. I was just like, I don't know. I'm not like a singer. And I didn't like see myself like that. So,
which is interesting because your voice is so rad. Like I would not think that would be something that you were like, oh yeah. And then I had to play bass, but I always was a singer.
I know at the time I just pictured singers being like, oh, somebody with like a really traditional, like pretty voice or something. I don't know.
Right.
I just like didn't even think
a pop singer, more.
Yeah, like
more,
a pop. Yeah, exactly. Like I just hadn't really found my space in it. But they like pushed me to do that. And then, when we broke up, like it was at that point that I was like started all my own projects where I was singing. Like I started a garage punk band called Holy Fever. That is like we still do stuff here and there, but at the time it was like much more active, and it was like and we did that, and then right after that is when I started Beginners, and and then I was doing that. And
so did Beginners start as just you as like a solo project, or was it always a band? Or
so interestingly, Beginners started with me and the guitar player from that first band that I was doing.
Okay.
Led. So him and I, our drummer in that band ended up, he was playing in Foster the People. When Foster the People like blew up, like we were all like really good friends.
Okay.
And when Foster the People blew up, Mark was like, with them, and me and the rest of the people in the band, we were all like hanging with them at the Wiltern, I think, when they were playing a show at the Wiltern. And that's when me and the guitar player, this guy, Nick Ruth, that's when we were like, hey, we should like collaborate and work on stuff again, you know, because we had been broken up for maybe like a couple years. And so Beginners actually started as just like messing around project with me and the guitar player from that my first band, Malbec.
Oh wow, okay. And then
Yeah.
you guys all kind of reunited at this Foster the
Yeah,
People show.
we reunited there, and then yeah, so Nick and I started, we didn't really have anything in mind. We were just like we just wanted to write really good songs with like really cool production.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started, and before we wrote like the first EP, you know, like, and recorded it like within like 2 months. And we were like, whoa, this is like fucking cool. This is really special, you know? And that's when I came up with the name Beginners, because it was really about Nick and I,
mm-hmm.
you know, sort of like beginning again as a people who had been in a band together for years. And, but then right before I was getting ready to like really release everything, he was like, you know, I realized like I don't actually want to be like in a band again.
Oh, wow.
You know? And I was like, that's fine. Like, I'll just do it. So then when I launched Beginners, it was just me. And then I've continued to like collaborate with him on all the records. And I have a full band that I do, that I play with live. That's like the same band every time. And like, we'll write some of the stuff together as well. So.
But it's mainly just you, right? As Beginners, it's.
Yeah. It's like my kind of brainchild. And I'm like, definitely like the primary person like that. Yeah.
Okay. Was it like once you put out the EP, like, was it hard kind of starting back from the, you know, at the beginning again? I mean, being in a band that was doing stuff and then kind of go back and be like, okay, let's try this.
I thought it would be. I thought it was gonna, it took off pretty fast because I released the first single, mm-hmm. and I was like, okay, here we go. And all of a sudden, basically the first single just blew up.
Oh, so wow.
The first single, I know. The first single is this song called Who Knows? Mm-hmm. And I released it, and my old drummer, Mark from Foster the People, loved it. And they liked it, and they were like, oh, we're putting together a playlist for Spotify. And this is like kind of in the prime of Foster the People.
Okay.
And so they had this really good relationship with Spotify, and they made like a special thing for Spotify. And they put Who Knows was like the 5th song on it, on this playlist of like all this cool stuff they love. And so then the Spotify editors got a hold of it and loved it and put it on like every playlist.
Wow.
And then like I did this video and the music video. So it's a really cool music video with this like 65-year-old like roller skater.
Uh-huh.
Like it's amazing. Like you should watch it
after this.
Yeah, it's a really cool video. And then the video took off and was like featured a bunch of stuff. And then like it was just like everywhere. And then it started being in like TV shows. So it was like right at the beginning, like my first show. And so it was like immediately we were getting offered all these like amazing shows.
Yeah, you know, I was going to say, to have that kind of recognition, especially with like Spotify and the video doing well, I'm sure a lot of people are like, now they're curious, like, oh, what's this? Like, what's Beginners? And like, poke on their head, trying to figure out what's
exactly.
going on.
That was kind of what was happening. And yeah, I think like my first show was like, you know, playing for like 1,000 people, sold out show with Mr. Little Jeans. And then our second show was like opening for Tovlo.
Oh, wow.
And then like right after that, we went on tour with Walk the Moon. Like it was a whole thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So in a way, to be honest, when I did it, honestly, one of the first things that I noticed, I was like, oh my God, this is so much easier than like, you know what I mean? When I thought about like what we built, like with the band prior,
mm-hmm.
you know, my first band, I was like, oh damn, no, when something's just like going, it's just like going.
Right.
And then everybody's like, everyone is beating down your door, you know?
But with that though, like, did you, I mean, to have a massive start like that? Were you worried like, oh my, is this going to slow down? Like, what like, are people going to continue to latch onto these records? Or do you
I
not think
mean,
about that at that
I
point?
wasn't worried about it, but I will say that I think at the time I wasn't like, when I think about it now, because like I said, we had these huge opportunities when we were just getting our legs as like a live band, and
Right.
this new configuration, and myself as a front person and all this stuff. And that the way the live set feels and all that had changed so much. Like now, like our live show is like so fun. It's like this giant party. It's like, I think the best thing about the band. At the time when Beginners was like first blowing up, I had this idea that because I'm like, come from like punk world, I was like, my take on this is like, I don't want to just be like this pop singer, so it's like I played bass or guitar on every song, so I'm like always behind the mic. Like I never like took the mic and like got in the crowd, which like now I do. But at the time I was like, no, like I'm a musician, like I play instruments, I'm a multi-instrumentalist, and like I want to like showcase that. And our live show is like super dark and brooding and heavy in this way, and we would like shred, and we still like shred a little bit, but it's like the tone of everything is like just like much like lighter and fun. And like I said, I play guitar bass on some songs, but most of the time I'm just out there like pumping up the crowd. So I will say that I think that there's a little bit of a missed opportunity there, because I think if we had been more ready, but like you can never do that, but had we been like where we are now live show wise, I think like when we had all that initial attention, I think I'd probably be further along. That's what I would say.
But I mean, to go from like, yeah, but that's hard to say, right? I mean, to you probably were more comfortable. Obviously, there's probably a comfort to being able to be behind the instrument and playing and singing, because it was like you were a bass player, backups, to now you're front and center to everything. And not only that, you're playing these massive shows. I mean, some of the first shows you're selling out.
I just thought it looked cool. I also was just like, in my mind, I was like, women, you never see women like, or it's more rare. You're seeing it more now, but like, it was just rare to see like a woman who just like can own their instrument and shred and sing. But you see a lot of women that just like sing and like run around the stage and stuff. And that was my thought. I was like, I'm really good at this thing. Like, I want that to be like a feature, like the same way St. Vincent, you know what I mean? Like St. Vincent's always got a guitar doing shreddy stuff.
Right. Or like Distillers. She always has a guitar, or
exactly. Like that's kind of was my thoughts. I think it was a little misguided, but that was my thinking.
No, but I mean, I can totally understand where you're coming from with that. Like, so you have these songs that are doing well, and then you put out your album, right? The first album, Pleaser. And with that, like, was that around the Walk the Moon tour time, or was that after the fact? Or like,
I think it was probably right around then. I'm trying to remember. Maybe it was after. I can't remember.
Okay.
But we've basically only put out like a series of EPs, but they're all like kind of longer EPs. Pleaser is listed as an album, but it's really just like a 7-song EP, which is like mostly what I do.
Yeah, I've noticed that. It's interesting because it's like, when is it an album at 10 or 9? You know what I mean? It's like,
I can't figure it out. I honestly,
most EPs are like 5 songs. So it's like, when does it turn into an album?
I can't, honestly. I was just trying to look this up for Spotify the other day, because I'm like, I don't understand why like some of my EPs, like Pleaser's listed as an album,
but some of my other like, is listed as an EP, and it's 7 songs also.
Correct. Yeah, I can't figure it. I'm like, I'll report back when I get this answer.
Okay, somebody needs to figure it out. What is the exact number of songs that it becomes an album?
Exactly. Yeah. So annoying.
Okay, so like, what would you say, like, after putting that out and, you know, you had more singles and EPs, like, what was the next kind of big, you know, validating victory for you to continue doing it?
I mean, essentially, kind of from that point on, like, we just continued to like build, you know, our live show, like playing tons of shows and, you know, that sort of thing, like building up our presence and our whole, you know, vibe live. And then as I was like releasing stuff, I've been pretty prolific. So I just constantly, because I have so many singles that aren't even parts of EPs. Like I think there was like a 2-year period maybe where I released like singles all the time, but never even rolled it into EPs. But what was kind of happening during that time was beginners started getting used more and more, like in licensing with like film
sync,
and TV
like
and
sync
commercials.
stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when that started happening, I mean, that was definitely, it was interesting because it changed the shape of like the trajectory, because like the reason why I had to put out for like 2 years after Pleaser, for like 2 years, I was literally just putting out singles, you know, and like I didn't even have time to like organize a whole like record launch. Like I would like a normal record cycle, you know, where you have like single number 1, single number 2, and you have everything in advance. And because what was happening was with licensing, I was licensing a lot of stuff that wasn't even released yet. And that was happening through, I have like a publishing deal. So my publishing company, I would turn in songs like, hey, here's songs that I'm working on, you know, that I finished maybe for the next record. Maybe it won't make the record. I don't know, but here they are. And then they pitch them out to music supervisors, right? From like film and TV and commercials and the ad space. And so what started happening was like these songs were getting licensed so quickly and frequently that I was having to release songs like all the time because they were going to be in something. Versus like, here's an album that I'm putting out, and now it's getting used in stuff. You know what I mean? But the song's already out.
Right. So you would release something knowing like that it was going to go to some sort of TV show, film, movie, whatever. It
was like all of a sudden, instead of like my album cycles and my albums coming out dictating licensing opportunities, all of a sudden licensing opportunities started dictating
when you could put
my
the song
release
out.
cycles.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's kind of a rad spot to be in though, right? I mean, you know that it's going to get used. You know that you're going to make, there's some lucrative aspect to it.
Yeah, totally. And you know that it's going to like, it depending on what the placement is, that's like guaranteed streams, because people are going to be like, ooh, this is cool. What's this?
Right.
Yeah. So that, I mean, it was like amazing, but it definitely was hard to keep up with. And I regret not still putting out like albums, figuring out a way to be organized with releasing albums around those releases, but it is what it is. And that's kind of what happened. Yeah, it's like, what are you gonna do? But that happened for like a couple years. And then I started working with management for the first time in this band, because I was always just self-managed. And I started
it seems like you didn't even really, I mean, to be able to get a pub deal and then have all these things land, like not land in your lap, but like to be able to do these, like, here's a song and already gets licensed. Like, you don't need, why kick out 10-20%? Right? You know what I mean?
I know. Well, there's other stuff. I mean, for instance, like one of the things that they really helped with was reining in some of that chaos. Because this still happens with like licensing opportunities. It's like, oh, fuck, now I got to release this song like in 2 weeks. You know, like I got to get artwork. I got to like do all this stuff. I should do a big push since it's going to be in this thing. And like, you know, they've really helped me. They kind of helped organize that chaos and like get back to still planning record releases. You know, like last year I released Ooey Gooey. And then I released actually like a Christmas EP.
Yeah, which is really rad. Yeah. Are you doing it again this year or no?
I don't think so. I don't think I have
Okay.
enough, holiday songs in time for it. I just like happen to have a bunch.
That's
Um,
cool.
and then the next year, or that's this year. I'm like, then the next year, I'm like, wait, that's now.
But
Like,
it's
so
almost the next year, right? It's
I
like we're like
know,
2 months away. It's
no,
so
I
crazy.
know. Yeah. And then this year, releasing another EP called If the World Is Ending. Like
And
they've
does
been,
that come out tomorrow?
no, it's coming out. Well, I
Oh,
think it was going to come out November 4th, but I think we're moving it to November 9th. But I'm
okay.
actually still waiting to find out
Okay. Maybe
because we
what
were
do I
trying to
have?
move it.
Yeah, I
You
have
probably have November 4th on it. I don't know. What do you
no,
have?
I have November 2nd for some reason. And then I'm like, why
November
would the
2nd.
record come out on a Wednesday? But some people
I
do that.
mean, who's to say? Yeah,
Right. But
I know.
yeah,
I'm like, yeah, I should really figure that out.
we'll put this out whenever the album or whenever the record comes out.
Yes,
So
there we
so we
go. There
could,
we go.
yeah.
There we go. But yeah.
Well, okay. Well, so when you were doing like the singles that were kind of tied more along the lines of, with the sync deals, were you doing that like when 2020 happens and the world, stops and shuts down? Were you kind of in that place? I mean, that's kind of a good spot to be in if you're not relying on the
I
tour
know.
and the that were you, is that when that was happening, or did that affect what you have going on, with the Ooey Gooey EP and what you have now?
Honestly, it was very lucky because I mean, we had tons of tours and stuff booked for 2020. So it was definitely a big disappointment
Mm-hmm.
because we were like reaching more and more touring momentum. And that really honestly kind of crushed that. Like we've been playing shows, but we're not back to our normal touring rhythm and like
Mm-hmm.
frequency. But that was a moment where I was like, dang, it's real. I'm really lucky because I have so many friends in the industry that make their living from touring.
Right.
And I've always been like, I just want to tour more and more, which I still do. But I will say that it was nice for me to go like, thank God that's not really how I make a living, because I make my living from streams and licensing.
Yeah. Right.
Because I have a publishing deal, but I never signed to a record label. So I own all my
Own the
masters.
masters. Wow,
So
that's
for
brilliant.
streaming and licensing, like that makes
Oh,
a big difference if
oh,
you
all the difference, right? I
all
mean,
the
if you're
difference.
paying, if a label owns all of your masters, yeah, you're not. A lot of people don't understand that you're not making anything, right,
Right,
off the
totally.
streams.
Yeah, streams like, oh my God, because publishing is like such a small proportion of what you get paid out for streams. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's
So
awesome that you, especially to be able to be in that position. That's incredible.
yeah, I definitely felt really grateful especially when all that happened. I was like, man, I'm lucky because I
Mhm.
just kind of continued. I mean, I get to do shows, or I had to do so many like virtual shows, which
How
I
was
hate.
that?
I mean, it's fine. It was better than doing nothing, but
Right.
I was like, this is annoying.
Were you doing those are the venue ones where you'd be like playing to like, the Roxy with no one there or anything like that? Or would you just do like more like in a studio or at your house?
I did ones at my house. I
That's
did
cool.
one at our studio. I did one at like into somebody else's studio. Like I did, yeah, I did a whole variation of them.
Yeah,
But
people just had to get creative. I mean, there's
you had
nothing
to,
else to
and it was
do.
like nice at the time, but yeah, yeah, we just like moved forward with releasing stuff and I just wrote a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, one of the nice things about during that time was because I produce as well.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of my songs, a lot of beginner songs are collaborations with other producers.
Mm-hmm.
And when the quarantine and all that happened, it's like I was doing Zoom sessions, but they just were such a bummer, that I ended up doing just focusing more on my own productions.
Mm-hmm.
So I was spending a lot of time producing my own music, like way more than usual, which was another added benefit of it because that really like kicked that into high gear.
Sure. Yeah. With the Zoom writing sessions, were you writing with people you had never written with? Like you just pop on, like you and I just did, like, oh, hey, like we don't know each other, but like let's write a song. Like that must have been hard to do.
It is. It's like such a weird vibe. It's easier when it's like people you know and you've worked with.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I was doing that with strangers. Um, it's just not the same, you know, like working in the room together and like spitballing is such a different energy.
Sure.
Um, you
Well,
know.
you've worked with a handful of on this new EP. I mean, you have some cool people on there. I mean, Robert DeLong's on it, and like
Yeah.
you've got, I think, is Posey on one of the songs, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
Yeah.
that's so. Was that all done? Like, was this EP written? Like, how recently did you start working on these songs?
They're pretty fairly recent, like maybe, you know, within the last, I'm trying to think of maybe not all the songs, like I'd have to think about that.
But
But
like,
within
no
6 months,
pandemic virtual, like none of it had to be done like Zoom style,
I
or
don't
no?
think any of these were done over Zoom. All of
Okay.
these were in person. Yeah.
That's cool. I
Yeah.
mean, I love the songs that I've heard thus far. I mean, the record's
Thanks.
rad. I love your sound. It's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, tell me about the EP. Like, so you like, what was it? You I mean, what was it like working with Robert DeLong, for example?
I mean, so fun. Like Robbie's a good friend of mine, and so we hang together anyways pretty frequently, and we've collaborated a couple times, and I mean, he's just amazing. He's like super chill, super like he's just like really talented, really cool, creative multi-instrumentalist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was
Yeah,
interesting.
his live show's insane. He's got like all the
So
video
fun.
game stuff. Like he's
Yeah.
like controlling stuff off like a controller. Like it's so wild.
Yeah, he's incredible, super creative. And it was interesting because for this song, because we did a song called Goodbye, Good Luck
Mm-hmm.
together. And it was funny because both of us do usually have like a lot more of electronic influence in our music,
Yeah.
but like both of us, both his project and beginners. And but for that song, but we both like kind of grew up with like emo and like pop punk and stuff like that.
Which is the vibe I love. That's what I love to hear.
Yeah.
You've got that perfect like mesh of those two worlds.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. So when we went to work together that day, I was like just kind of complaining to him about somebody who'd like broken my heart essentially.
Uh-huh.
And I just grabbed a guitar, you know, and I just was like kind of like playing like a whiny pop punk song to him, just like making it up, but like with even more ridiculous lyrics.
Okay.
And I was like sort of singing about it and just being like joking around, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden we were like, I don't know, this is kind of a vibe. Like, let's just make this a song. And then yeah, and then like Robert like hopped on the drums, like laid down the drums, and yeah, it was like it was very like it was pretty simplified. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Which is
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
It's kind of just going back. It's like drums, bass, guitar,
Mm-hmm.
our vocals, and like one little synth that we added for a
Sure.
moment. And then
Yeah,
just
it's
like
almost like a more stripped down version, which is interesting because of
yeah.
what he, what his live show and what he usually brings is. It's kind of the opposite.
Exactly. Like it's funny that the song that I do with Robert DeLong is that one.
Right,
You know what I mean? Like
right.
my least, yeah, like kind of complex or like electronic one.
That's cool though.
Just very rock, but yeah, we loved it. I still do. It's one of my favorite songs.
It's I really like. I mean, the songs that like I said, I love the style that you have. Like, okay, so you have a song called New York, and then you have on the record, I Hate That I Love Brooklyn. Like, what's the New York tie?
I know. You know what's funny about that is I have the song I Hate That I Love Brooklyn. It's about a person.
Okay.
But what's funny about that is that I had that one and that's new. But this song, New York, I had for, this is an example. I had that song for like 3 years.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. And New York's not going to be on the EP, but
yeah, but it's new in its release.
It's
That's why I was just curious.
So what happened was I've had this song and I always loved it. But it like never fit necessarily with an album. So it's like, whatever, it's there. And then all of a sudden it got used in there's this new Netflix documentary about Leo Baker, this like amazing skateboarder.
Mm-hmm.
And it got used in there in that documentary. And
Oh,
then,
wow.
yeah. And so then when it was going to be in there, I was like, shoot, like I should really release this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, like right after that, it got picked up for the US Open trailer.
Oh, I was wondering about that.
Yeah. And I was like, this is crazy. And then it's going to be in something else like really big that I forget. Hold on, let me look. Where I was like,
Wow.
why is this song after like so long? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just
that
so
was
interesting.
crazy. I was wondering about that. Yeah, because that was in the US Open trailer, because they did that in New York, right? That they had part of, or they had the US Open in
Yeah,
New
I was in
York,
New
and they used,
York.
yeah, and then they had
Yeah.
that they used the song for that. I remember seeing that on your
Yeah.
Instagram. I was like, oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah. It was very cool. But yeah, I'm just looking at it's going to be in some like an Amazon thing. Like it's just, it's so funny to me because it's like the song's like 3 years. I've had it for 3 years and like it wasn't out, but
But now
uh
it's, people
and
love
now
it.
it's just like getting all the stuff. So that's why I released it, you know.
Smart.
But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, but I
Rad.
like the song, so I was happy to put it out. Yeah.
That's cool. And then when the EP comes out, are you doing a tour? I mean, you said you're not really back in full tour
Yeah, we're gonna
swing
try
yet.
to pick up some tours. Yeah, like um, I'm gonna try to pick up whatever I can, basically.
Mhm.
Like going into the next year will be that, like, you know, doing all the shows and like in support of the album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this, Sam. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I have one more question though
Yeah.
before I let you go. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, I do. I would say one thing I talk about a lot is and this is more like how to figure out like the financial aspect of it,
Hmm.
which is I always recommend to people. I think they're like there can be this sort of like ego tug at you to be like, oh, I need to be doing music full time, like as my income, or else I'm not like a real artist. You know what I mean? Like, oh, like if I don't like do this, you know what I mean? Like I need to quit my job to do focus on music kind of thing. And I hear this a lot, like from people that are trying to figure out, like, yeah, I'm thinking about quitting my job so I can really dive in or whatever.
Hmm.
And I think there can be a lot of like pressure to do that in the industry because like it makes you feel more validated or something. Um, but my advice is essentially, when trying to figure out how to like bridge that gap to doing music professionally, my advice is like work, you know what I mean? Like work to pay your bills, do whatever to pay your bills. And then like use that money, pump it into building your music career, and like my thought on it is like if you don't care about music enough to like work a full-time job and bust your ass nights and weekends to make it happen, then you probably aren't going to be motivated or driven enough to actually make it full-time either. You know what I mean? Because it takes so much work and like so much discipline. So my advice is always like keep a job until literally it's like ridiculous for you to have a job, and then like because you're making so much money, and then I'm like, okay, great, like then transition over, but like just don't feel pressure to like you have to be doing that for your living. You know what I mean, to feel validated as an artist, because it's art after
Right.
all.